10K really is this mysterious number that everyone seems to chase. And if you don't have it yet, you're not alone either, because 2/3 of the UK have less than £10,000 in savings. What this does mean though is that you are one financial emergency or job loss away from having to borrow money just to stay afloat. But the good news is this is actually a pretty simple problem to fix. And today I'm going to walk you through exactly how you can get your first 10K together so you can move forward with confidence. And we're going to do all of this while we walk around one of my favorite spots to walk the dog in Hampshire. Unfortunately, he's not with me today because he goes pretty nuts when I'm on camera. So let's get into it. How are we going to get this first 10K together? Now, first up, why is 10K so important? And people think that 10K is just this random number, but it really is much more than that. If you think that the UK average salary roughly pays around £2,200 a month, 10K is roughly 4.5 months worth of expenses. So if you've got that in savings, what it does is it gives you the element of security. So if something happens, someone crashes into your car, your roof falls down, etc., even though roofs are quite expensive, you are a lot more secure when you've got 10K in the bank. And equally, it is really about being able to bat off anything that happens to you at that point. And 10K really does provide that. But possibly the biggest thing for me is about choice, and it's about freedom. If you are working in a job that you really don't like and your boss is a bit of a you can potentially, if you've got 10K sitting in the bank, actually say, you know what, this just isn't for me. And if you do leave that job, you've got 4.5 months to actually go out and find a new one, which means you don't have to just take one for the sake of it. You can actually find something that you like. And then one that I think gets undervalued a lot, and that's relationships as well. By having 10K in the bank, you can potentially leave a toxic relationship. You might not need to at this very moment, but in the future, that could happen. So having security there is really, really important in my opinion. So essentially we look at the 10K like this. It is your emergency fund, it's your safety blanket, but also it allows you to kick on in other areas of your finance. Perhaps you can now start looking at investing and start growing your wealth too, because you have that security there to help you kick on. So how do we actually save 10K? So a large part of saving comes down to overspending, particularly in areas which don't provide us value. Now, I'm not one to say go and do a budget every single month, but doing one once, at least doing a spending plan, will make a big, big difference. You want to be moving money out of things which don't provide you value and moving money into things that do. So you can save as well as do the things which are important to you in your daily life. So once you've actually worked out how much you have to set aside for your savings, you want to set yourself a goal. So you might say, I want to get to 10K in 3 years' time from now. And I'll do an example on that in a minute. But that's just giving you something to work towards. And that's really, really important because you have to know where you're going. So when the times get rough, because they will, because life happens, you want to have a goal, your North Star, so you can always come back onto the right path. So let's say you do want to do it in the 3 years like I just mentioned. Now you've got something to work towards. Right, 10 grand, let's break that down. How much do I need to save each month to get there? And how much potential interest could I also earn? Right now you can get about 4 to 5%, so let's say 4.5%. At 4.5%, if I was getting that back from my savings account every single year, I can work that out. So I can use a compound interest calculator to do that. And roughly I would need to save around about 260 quid a month. Now that gives me something to aim towards. But looking up at that 10K alone can be quite daunting. And I totally get that. So what I like to do is I like to break it down into steps even further from there. So what can I achieve in 3 months, 6 months, and this year? And then I do that again and again and again. And what that does is it creates positive loops around your money. So good habits are now forming around your savings, giving you quick wins along the way. And if you struggled with savings in the past, this can be a massive, massive hack to get you saving every single month. Now, Sammy, where can I go out and actually get those accounts that you mentioned offering 4 or 5% interest rates? Well, there are different types of savings accounts which you can do. You can have a high interest savings account. Many providers offer that rate right now, or you can also open what's called a cash ISA. Now, I actually prefer cash ISAs over high interest savings accounts simply because the money that I do put inside of a cash ISA is 100% mine. I'm never going to be taxed on that. However, in a high interest savings account, if you go over certain thresholds, your personal savings allowance is what it's called, then you are subject to tax on that money. So just get that money inside of a cash ISA with as high interest as you can possibly muster. Now, I used to be in £24,000 worth of debt, so I know about habits pretty well, and building them, especially if you struggle to save or if you just don't, is really, really important. So if you can afford to save £250 a month, start much smaller than that. So start with something like £50 and do that for at least 3 months, because habits take 90 days to form. So that's 3 pay cycles in most cases. And one of the biggest hacks for me, and what a lot of people don't do, is they get paid and they're like, oh yeah, you know, I'll chuck that money in a savings account. And they never do, because they find a way to spend it. So set up a direct debit or a standing order to come out of your account. So it just happens like clockwork. The day on or after payday is the best. And look, if you're sitting there thinking, you know, that 3 years is a bit too long for me. Well, what I actually did to get out of £24,000 in debt, and I did it in 18 months, is I combined my savings and my debt repayments with side hustles. And that is the biggest hack that you could possibly do. I literally did anything you could think of: freelancing, reselling trainers, car boot sales, to raise a bit of money to go in towards my debt. But you can do that for your savings as well. So it comes down to habits, how much you can actually contribute, and whether or not you're willing to put the extra work in to increase your savings contributions, whether that's through side hustles or increasing your income at work. Essentially, those are the 3 things that you need to really focus on to actually get yourself into gear and get that 10K in the bank. But you're always gonna have challenges and setbacks in life. And I think that's really important to say, because life happens, right? And if you're looking at that £260 and thinking, wow, that's a lot of money for me, well then don't worry, because you're going to value money differently. Personal finance is personal. There's no one size fits all here. So you have to work it out based on your own situation. And just remember, you know, try not to chase the shiny objects when they come around, because they will. You're going to get offered to go out on the lads' holiday or perhaps upgrade the new car. And if saving really is your most important goal, you have to make it your most important goal. Because once you've got that 10K there, you have the options and the choice and the freedom and the security to actually make a big, big difference in your daily life. So now we've got that 10K hopefully locked up in our bank, it really is time to kick on, because savings alone isn't going to cut it for you throughout the rest of your wealth building journey. You do need to look at investing as the next step here to actually truly grow your wealth, simply because inflation will devalue your savings over time, and the only real way to outpace inflation is through investing. And that's why I think the best video to follow on from this is coming up on screen now, and it literally is exactly how I would start investing if I had to start again from scratch in 2025, and it's coming up on your screen right now. Click that and let's carry on learning together, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.